The night falls upon the Nile, not with haste, but with the gentle patience of a hand drawing a veil across the sky. The river, endless in its slow current, moves as it has for thousands of years, carrying reflections of starlight upon its surface, carrying the weight of history within its depths. Along its banks, palms sway softly, their shadows stretching long upon the sand, while temples glow faintly beneath the flicker of torches, their columns rising like silent sentinels carved against time itself. The stillness of Egypt's night is not emptiness, but fullness, filled with whispers of eternity, filled with the breath of gods who have never ceased to watch, filled with the quiet steps of those who once believed that death was not an end, but a passage. Imagine the hush of that river, its waters slipping by with the sound of silk brushed against stone. Imagine boats carved of wood, gliding like shadows, their sails catching breezes too soft to stir the air upon land. Priests stand upon the banks, their heads shaven, their robes flowing white, their hands lifting offerings toward constellations that glow steady above. The air is heavy with the scent of lotus blossoms, of incense smoldering within bronze bowls, of sand cooling after the sun's long blaze. This is the Egypt that welcomed the living and prepared them for the afterlife, a place where every breath, every ritual, every structure of stone was built with eternity in mind. The Egyptians did not see death as silence, but as continuation, a crossing as natural as the river's own flow. The tombs carved into cliffs, the pyramids rising against the desert, the temples aligned with starzl were not monuments to loss, but gateways to forever. In their world, the Nile was not only water, but symbol, not only sustenance, but pathway, a mirror of the eternal river that carried souls into realms unseen. Each ripple upon its surface was believed to echo the rhythm of passage. Each shimmer of starlight upon its currents, a sign that life did not vanish, but transformed, moved, endured. As the night deepens, picture the Valley of the Kings, quiet beneath the moon. Entrances carved into stone descend into corridors painted with gods and stars, their walls alive with color even in shadow, their hieroglyphs whispering of journeys beyond life. Within, chambers lie still, their air cool, their ceilings adorned with maps of heaven, their floors bearing sarcophagi carved with the names of kings who dreamed of eternal reign. Yet these are not places of despair, they are places of promise. For the Egyptians, to rest within such tombs was to begin a journey, to rise not into darkness but into light, eternal, guided by gods who stood at the thresholds of forever. The gods themselves linger in this silence. Osiris, lord of the afterlife, waits upon his throne, his skin the color of fertile earth, his crown gleaming with feathers of eternity. Anubis, jackal-headed guardian, walks unseen along the sands, his dark eyes steady upon every soul that approaches the weighing of the heart. Ra sails his golden bark across the heavens, carrying the sun through night so that dawn may come again, reminding all that renewal is not dream but law. Hathor, gentle and radiant, extends her hand, guiding the departed into fields of eternal harvest, where wheat grows taller than men and waters never fail. In every breeze, in every torch flicker, in every silence of stone, their presence is felt not harsh, not fearful, but steady, eternal, soothing as the lullaby of the Nile itself. And so, the beginning of this journey into the Egyptian afterlife is not filled with dread, but with calm inevitability. The river flows, the stars shine, the tombs wait, the gods watch, the desert holds its silence. To step into this vision is to feel the weight of time soften, to sense that eternity is not distant but near, not hidden but woven into every grain of sand, every ripple of water, every breath drawn beneath the sky. The gates of eternity are not locked. They are open, silent, patient, waiting as they always have, waiting as they always will. As you rest now, let the Nile's current be your lullaby. Hear its soft ripple as the rhythm of your breath. See the torches flicker as the glow behind your eyes. Smell the faint sweetness of lotus as the drifting of dreams across your mind. Feel the cool stone of temples as the weight of blankets upon you. Let the gods stand, not as judges, but as guardians, their presence calm, their silence protective, their eternity shared with yours. And if this gentle passage has soothed your thoughts, if the Nile's hush and the promise of eternity have carried you nearer to rest, you may, in your own time, allow your presence to be felt here as well. You may like this video softly. Leave a comment sharing what vision of Egypt drifts most vividly into your dreams. Share it with another dreamer who longs for calm horizons, or subscribe so that each new tale may find you when night is long and sleep is near. There is no urgency, only invitation, as soft as the river's own flow, carrying you onward, carrying you into silence, carrying you into rest. Block 2. The weighing of the heart. Beyond the hush of the Nile, beyond the slow current that mirrored the stars, there waited the moment that every Egyptian imagined. The passage, not through doors of stone, but through the silent chamber of eternity itself. It was the place where the soul stood alone, where no treasure, no crown, no monument of stone could follow, where even the body that had been wrapped and blessed and hidden in the depths of tombs was left behind. Here, in the stillness of the Hall of Two Truths, the heart itself was brought forth, not as symbol, but as essence, placed upon scales, balanced against the single feather of Marat, the goddess of truth, of balance, of harmony. Imagine the chamber. Columns rise tall and solemn, carved with hieroglyphs that glow faintly in the light of oil lamps. Statues of gods stand silent, their eyes unblinking, their presence steady as mountains. The air is cool, heavy with incense, filled with the hush of eternity. Anubis, jackal-headed, moves with calm precision, lifting the heart of the departed gently, placing it upon the golden scale. In the other pan, the feather lies light, so delicate it trembles with the smallest breath. The silence deepens. The gods watch. The soul waits. This was not judgment as punishment, nor as cruelty, but as truth. For the Egyptians believed that the heart carried all deeds, all thoughts, all secrets, that nothing could be hidden from its weight. If it balanced, if it proved as light as the feather, the soul was welcomed into the eternal fields, into the presence of Osiris, into the endless calm of rebirth. If it weighed heavy with falsehood, if it betrayed disharmony, then Amit, the devourer, waited a creature part lion, part crocodile, part hippopotamus, whose jaws ended all journeys in eternal silence. Yet even this fate was not cast in terror, but in inevitability. For the Egyptians understood eternity not as threat, but as balance, not as fear, but as truth. Picture Anubis, his black ears pricked, his golden eyes steady, his hands firm yet gentle upon the scales. He does not tremble, he does not hesitate. He guides, with patience, with order, with inevitability. Thoth, Ibiseded, stands beside him, writing carefully, recording each outcome, each truth revealed, each weight measured. Osiris, seated upon his throne, watches silently, his green skin gleaming in torchlight, his crown tall, his presence eternal. Around him, 42 assessors sit, each representing a principle, each embodying an aspect of balance. Their gaze is not hostile but calm, their silence not threatening but watchful. And as the soul stands before them, There is no clamor, no fire, no chaos. There is only stillness, the kind of stillness that comes when all illusions fall away, when only truth remains, when the heart itself is asked to rest upon scales that cannot lie. The Egyptians did not fear this stillness. They prepared for it in every prayer, in every ritual, in every offering. They wrote spells upon papyrus, placed amulets upon the chest, whispered words to guide the soul, all so that in this moment the heart might be free of burden, free of weight, free to rise, light as the feather itself. And when the scales balance, when the pans align, when the feather and the heart rest in harmony, the whole does not erupt in noise but deepens into quiet. Anubis inclines his head, Thoth's pen stops, Osiris lifts his hand, and the soul is welcomed, not as stranger but as child returning home. The gates of eternity open, not with thunder but with silence, and the journey continues, not ended, not broken, but carried onward into fields that shimmer with wheat, into rivers that flow eternal, into skies that shine without dusk. As you rest within this vision, let the weighing of the heart be not trial but lullaby. Feel your own breath as the balance of scales, steady, even calm. Hear the hush of gods as the quiet within your thoughts. See the feather glowing in torchlight as the shimmer behind your eyes. Let the truth within you rise light as air. Let your heart rest unburdened. Let your soul move gently into harmony. For in the hall of two truths, as in the hush of night, balance is not fear but peace, not burden but calm, not end but rest. Block 3. The journey through the Duat. Beyond the hall of two truths, where the heart has been weighed and balance has been found, the soul does not rest immediately in eternal fields, but must pass through the Duat, the vast and mysterious realm of the underworld, the hidden corridors beneath existence, the space where night stretches long and silence is deeper than rivers. To speak of the Duat is not to speak of punishment but of passage, of a landscape both dream and shadow, where gods walk unseen and gates rise endless, where each step is both trial and reassurance, both mystery and promise. Imagine the Duat not as darkness but as twilight, a place where light glimmers faintly yet never fades entirely. Rivers of black water flow slowly, their surfaces reflecting the shimmer of stars, though no sky stretches above. Caverns open wide, their ceilings vast and painted with constellations that glow faintly as though starlight itself had descended. Pathways twist like winding currents, some lined with fire that burns without heat, some with walls carved in endless hieroglyphs, their symbols glowing softly as if alive. The Duat is not chaos but order, though an order that can only be walked slowly, step by step, as if through a dream that must be endured to be understood. Here, the soul encounters gates 12, in number, each guarded by deities whose names whisper like spells. Each gate is not barrier but threshold, each guardian not enemy but examiner. Their forms shift, some radiant, some fearsome, some serene, yet all demand the same. Words of passage, truth spoken, courage remembered. The Book of the Dead gave to the living these words, inscribed upon papyri buried with the body, so that when the soul stood trembling before a gate, it could speak, it could remember, it could move forward. For, in the Duat, words were not ornament but key, not metaphor but path itself. At times, the soul is ferried across waters, standing upon boats carved with eyes upon their prows, guided by figures who row in silence, their movements steady, their faces unreadable. The waters themselves are smooth, reflecting faint constellations, the boat gliding as though pushed not by oars but by inevitability. At times the soul walks upon narrow bridges, fire flickering below, winds sighing above, the silence broken only by the sound of its own steps. At times it moves through fields of reeds, taller than a man, whispering softly as the wind passes, their sound soothing as lullaby. The Duat is many places at once, a shifting of scenes, a dissolving of boundaries, a dream that moves as dreams do, without map, without measure, yet always onward. And in this journey, gods appear, not to terrify, but to guide. Anubis walks still, his jackal eyes glowing in shadow, his presence steady, protective. Thoth appears, ibiseded, inscribing the steps, recording the words, ensuring the order remains unbroken. Horus glimmers faintly, falcon wings stretching across visions of dawn that flicker even here in shadow. Isis, radiant, speaks softly, her words carrying warmth, her hand lifting the soul when weariness sets in. The Duat is not emptiness. It is filled with presences, with guardians, with the steady rhythm of eternity watching, carrying, sustaining. Each gate passed, each guardian greeted, each word spoken brings the soul closer to the horizon of dawn. For the Duat is not destination, but passage, not silence without end, but silence leading to song. At its deepest, at its most shadowed, the bark of Ra itself passes, carrying the sun through night, its sails glowing with fire. Its crew of gods fending off the serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, who seeks to devour the light. The struggle is fierce, yet it repeats always the same, and always, without fail, the sun emerges again, the serpent defeated, the dawn assured, and so too with the soul. The journey through shadow is not without challenge, but it is written, inevitable, certain, that light waits beyond. As you rest within this vision, let the Duat be not frightening, but soothing. Hear the hush of its rivers as the rhythm of your own breath. See the glow of its constellations as the shimmer behind your eyes. Feel the slow passage through gates as the easing of your own thoughts, one by one, step by step. Let the guardians be not fearsome but gentle, their presence protective, their silence reassuring. The Duat is not chaos but calm, not punishment but passage, not darkness but dream, and as the soul walks through it, so too may you walk into deeper rest, carried gently, steadily, into the dawn of silence. Block for Osiris and the throne of eternity. Beyond the silent rivers of the Duat, beyond the guarded gates and the constellations painted upon unseen ceilings, the soul at last comes into the presence of Osiris, the Lord of the Afterlife, the eternal King seated upon his throne. This moment, awaited by every Egyptian heart, is not approached with terror but with solemn calm. For to stand before Osiris is to stand before balance itself, before renewal, before the certainty that death is not an ending but a transformation. The chamber is vast, its walls gleaming with images of eternity, its pillars carved with the stories of creation, its air heavy with incense and silence, as though the very breath of time rests here. Imagine Osiris seated upon a throne carved of stone and gold, its sides adorned with lotus and papyrus, symbols of Upper and Lower Egypt joined in harmony. His skin is green, the color of fertile earth, the promise of life reborn. He wears the Ative crown, tall and white, flanked with ostrich plumes, its height reaching toward eternity. In his hands he holds the crook and flail, symbols of kingship, of guardianship, of the balance between mercy and strength. Around him stand the gods who accompany his Renaissance, radiant and protective, her wings stretched wide as if to embrace the soul. Nephthys, her sister, shadowy and solemn, her presence a calm counterpoint. Horus, the falcon, his gaze sharp as dawn, his presence steady as sky. Behind them, the air glimmers with forms both human and divine, the company of eternity gathered in silence. The throne room is not bright but softly lit, the glow of oil lamps reflecting upon polished stone, the glimmer of gold and lapis lazuli catching faint light. Pools of still water reflect the columns, as though the room itself were doubled, both above and below, mirroring the belief that heaven and earth are reflections, that what is seen is never only itself, but also its eternal counterpart. The soul enters slowly, guided by Anubis, recorded by Thoth, received by the silence of Osiris. There is no rush. Eternity has no haste. Every step echoes like the movement of stars, measured, patient, inevitable. Osiris does not speak in thunder. His voice, when it comes, is deep and steady, like the sound of water flowing underground, like the hush of wind through papyrus reeds. He asks not many questions, for the heart has already been weighed, the truth already revealed. He asks only for presence, for acknowledgement, for surrender into eternity. His gaze is not piercing, but encompassing, not demanding, but embracing, as though he sees not the soul's faults nor its fears, but the essence that has endured, the thread that ties it into the fabric of eternity itself. Around the throne, the gods and spirits of the dead bear witness. They are not accusers, but companions, not enemies, but guardians of order. They watch as Osiris extends his hand, as the soul is welcomed into the eternal fields, into the paradise the Egyptians called the Field of Reeds. In that place, wheat grows tall, rivers flow clear, skies stretch endlessly, and the dead live as they had lived upon earth, yet without burden, without hunger, without sickness, without end. It is not a heaven of distance, but of reflection, a perfected Egypt where all labor yields abundance, where all journeys end in return, where all rest is everlasting. The Field of Reeds is not reached by escape, but by harmony. Those who stand before Osiris do not dissolve into silence, nor do they wander lost. They are placed gently into a rhythm that has always existed, into the cycle of sun and river, of sowing and harvest, of day and night, all endless, all soothing, all eternal. Osiris reigns there not as tyrant, but as guardian, not as ruler demanding, but as presence sustaining. To be in his realm is to be in balance, to walk in fields forever green, to drink from waters forever clear, to dwell beneath skies forever calm. And so the soul, once trembling at the edge of death, once wandering through shadowed corridors, once speaking passwords to guardians, now rests. It rests not in emptiness, but in abundance, not in silence, but in harmony, not in solitude, but in eternal companionship. Osiris, seated upon his throne, watches with eyes that do not fade, listens with ears that do not tire, guards with hands that never fail. In his presence, eternity is not concept, but reality, not distance, but nearness, not dream, but rest. As you rest within this vision, let Osiris be not distant, but close. Feel the weight of his calm as the weight of your own blankets. Hear the steadiness of his voice as the steadiness of your own breath. See the glow of lamps in his throne room as the shimmer behind your eyes. Let the Field of Reeds unfold within you, endless, fertile, calm, carrying you gently, not into fear, but into peace, not into silence, but into rest. Block 5. The Field of Reeds. Beyond the throne of Osiris, beyond the solemn gaze of the gods and the hush of the judgment chamber, the soul at last arrives at the place it had been promised since the first moment of belief. It is not a realm of fire, nor a kingdom of shadows, but a vision of Egypt perfected, a reflection of the world the people had known, polished until all burden fell away. This is the Field of Reeds, the paradise of the Egyptians, where eternity does not roar but hums like the Nile at dawn, where eternity is not weight but lightness, not silence but harmony, not end but continuation in perfect balance. Imagine a landscape that stretches without limit, yet feels always near, always intimate. Fields of wheat grow taller than men, golden in the sun, their stalks swaying in breezes soft as breath. Each ear of grain is full, never withering, never spoiled, never failing, for in this place harvest is eternal. Farmers walk the fields not in toil but in rhythm, their steps unhurried, their baskets always filled, their faces calm, their labor transformed into rest. The land is watered by channels drawn from rivers that never dry, streams clear as crystal winding gently, carrying the reflection of palms, of reeds, of skies forever blue. The reeds themselves rise thick and green, their stalks whispering as the wind brushes through. Birds sing softly among the mebuses, stepping carefully along the water's edge. Herons spreading their wings wide against the horizon, falcons gliding effortlessly above, their cries distant, soothing. Fish swim in the channels, flashing silver beneath the surface, always abundant, always near. The air is filled with the fragrance of lotus blossoms, their petals opening with the sun and folding gently with the stars, never fading, never lost. Houses to exist here, built as they had been upon earth, yet never crumbling, never worn, always welcoming. Families are reunited, ancestors embrace descendants, friends long parted meet again. They sit upon mats woven of reeds, share bread warm and soft, drink beer brewed from barley, taste fruits sweet as honey. Laughter drifts across the air, voices rise in songs that never tire, dances unfold beneath the shade of palms. The soul, once weary from journeys, once burdened by trial, now rests among its own, at home not only in space but in time, for here no moment passes into loss, no hour diminishes, no day fades. The field of reeds is not isolation but community, not stillness without life but stillness filled with joy. The Egyptians believed that here one could hunt and fish, row boats across calm waters, walk among trees heavy with fruit, tend cattle that never grew thin, weave baskets that never frayed. Life continued as it had been known, yet perfected, yet eternal, without suffering, without decay. To enter this place was to step into familiarity made infinite, to live in Egypt forever, yet in Egypt where every harvest was plentiful, every river generous, every moment gentle. And above it all, Osiris reigns quietly, his throne ever near, his presence steady as the current of the Nile. The gods walk freely here too, not distant but near, companions rather than judges. Hathor smiles softly among the reeds, her hand upon the shoulders of the departed, her presence as comforting as shade in summer. Isis lingers, her wings enfolding families in her protection, her voice a whisper of love unending. Horus glides above as falcon, his sharp eyes watching, guarding, guiding. In this place, divinity and humanity share harmony, woven together like reeds in a mat, inseparable, eternal. Night falls upon the field of reeds, but it is not dark as shadow. The stars gleam above in constellations bright, the moon glows softly upon rivers, the fires of hearths flicker warmly in homes. Sleep comes here too, yet it is a sleep without fear, without end, a rest so deep it feels like waking into eternity. Dreams in this place are not separate from life, for life itself has become dream, and dream itself has become life, both endless, both soothing, both one. As you rest within this vision, let the field of reeds unfold within you. Hear the whisper of wheat swaying as the sound of your own breath. See the shimmer of rivers as the glow behind your eyes. Smell the faint sweetness of lotus as the drifting of calm across your thoughts. Feel the presence of loved ones, near and gentle, as the warmth of your own rest. Let eternity be not distant but close, not abstract but intimate, not foreign but familiar as fields, as rivers, as skies, as home. Block 6. The gods who guide the dead. Beyond the fields where wheat sways eternally, beyond the rivers that never run dry and the reeds that whisper endlessly in the breeze, the Egyptian soul lives not only in the company of ancestors, not only among friends long reunited, but also under the presence of the gods who had always watched, who had always guided, who had always carried the journey from the first cry of birth to the last breath of life and into eternity. These gods are not distant here, not statues of cold stone, not carvings upon temple walls. In the field of reeds, and along every step of the Duat, they are near, living presences, companions rather than lords, guardians rather than rulers, woven into the very fabric of rest. Anubis is first among them, the black jackal who walked silently beside coffins, who stood beside the scales when hearts were weighed, who led the departed through the hidden passages of the Duat. His eyes are dark, yet steady, not harsh, but calm, not piercing, but protective. He does not abandon the soul, even here, in the afterlife's eternity. He lingers at the edges of fields, at the thresholds of houses, moving like shadow and like comfort at once. The Egyptians believed he anointed the dead, wrapped them in linen, blessed them for eternity, and, in the eternal realm, he remains the guardian of passage, ensuring that no soul loses its way, that every path remains smooth, that every silence remains safe. Thoth too is near, the ibis-headed scribe, who carries in his hands not only the reed pen and the scroll, but the very memory of order itself. He is the recorder, the measurer, the witness. In life he wrote the words of wisdom, in death he writes the truth of souls, in eternity he writes the eternal balance of harmony. He does not sleep, nor does he tire. His pen moves gently across endless papyri, each line shimmering with light, each word flowing like water. He ensures that nothing is forgotten, that eternity remains precise, that the rhythm of balance never fades. To rest under his gaze is to rest in the assurance that your name, your essence, your truth is forever inscribed, forever remembered, forever safe. Isis, mother and magician, moves gently through the afterlife. As she moved gently through life, her wings stretch wide, woven of feathers that shimmer softly, enfolding souls in protection. She is the one who raised Osiris, who guarded Horus, who whispered spells that healed and restored. Here she whispers still, though the whispers are not spells of struggle but songs of comfort. She bends to touch the heads of children, to clasp the hands of the newly arrived, to remind all that eternity is not cold but warm, not empty but filled with love that does not end. Beside her, her sister Nephthys lingers in shadow, quieter, softer, more solemn. Her presence, like night that comforts, like dusk that soothes, like silence that embraces. Together they are balance light and shadow, warmth and coolness, love and stillness. Hathor is here as well, the goddess of joy and beauty, the lady of music, of love, of drunkenness and of calm. She appears sometimes as a woman with a crown of horns and the solar disk between them, sometimes as a cow whose great eyes are deep with kindness, sometimes as a gentle presence whose laughter is like water falling into pools. She welcomes the dead with a cup of beer, with a garland of flowers, with music that drifts softly across the fields of eternity. Her presence is not command but celebration, not judgment but delight, ensuring that even in death the soul knows laughter, even in eternity the soul knows beauty, even in silence the soul knows joy. Horus, falcon-eyed, sweeps the skies above. His wings stretch across the horizon, his gaze sharp, his flight swift, his presence constant. He was the avenger of his father, the protector of kings, the guardian of order. In eternity, he guards still, circling above fields, soaring over rivers, ensuring that peace remains unbroken. His cry is not harsh but steady, a reminder that vigilance is eternal, that protection is unending, that the skies are never empty but always alive with watchful eyes. And Ra, the great sun, though he sails the sky of the living, sails too through the night of the Duat, and his presence in the afterlife is constant as breath. His golden bark glows faintly as it passes, carrying the light that ensures dawn, carrying the fire that fends off chaos, carrying the rhythm that the Egyptians trusted above, all that each night ends, each shadow breaks, each silence is followed by renewal. To rest under Ra's eternal cycle is to know that even eternity is alive with rhythm, that even forever moves gently, steadily, endlessly. These gods, together, are not distant monarchs, but eternal companions. They walk among the reeds, sit beside hearths, sail rivers in boats that gleam with starlight. They are present in every rustle of palm, in every ripple of water, in every flicker of lanterns glowing upon stone. The Egyptians never believed the afterlife was empty. They believed it was populated, guarded, accompanied. The soul was never alone, never abandoned, never lost. The gods who had been prayed to in life, whose statues had been adorned with flowers, whose names had been spoken with reverence, now walk near, tangible, present, eternal. And as you rest within this vision, let these gods stand not as judges, but as guardians. Feel Anubis at your side, steady and calm, his presence protective as sleep. Hear Thoth's pen scratching softly, inscribing your truth into eternity. Feel Isis' wings around you, warm and safe, Nephthys, shadow soothing and cool. Hear Hathor's laughter in the distance, gentle as lullaby. See Horus' wings sweeping across your dreams. Feel Ra's light breaking even the deepest silence. Let their presences be not overwhelming but calming, not commanding but embracing, carrying you into deeper rest, into harmony without end. Block 7. Tombs as gateways. The Egyptians never built in vain. Every stone lifted, every wall carved, every chamber sealed was raised not to contain the dead, but to open the living toward eternity. Their tombs were not graves in the way we often think of them, not holes in the earth where silence smothers, but doorways, thresholds between worlds, passages carved in stone that allowed the soul to step out of time and into forever. To walk near them, even today, in imagination, is to feel that hush which is not emptiness but presence, the kind of silence that hums with unseen life, the kind of stillness that suggests not endings but beginnings. Picture the pyramids rising against the desert sky, their edges sharp in the morning sun, their stones glowing gold as if fire slept within them. To the Egyptians, they were not only tombs for kings but ladders for souls, steps leading into the heavens, conduits between earth and sky. Each pyramid was aligned with the stars, its sides facing the four directions, its very geometry echoing cosmic order. To step within was to walk into the body of eternity itself, each corridor a vein of time, each chamber a heart of silence, each inscription a whisper meant to carry the soul beyond. The Valley of the Kings, too, was no place of sorrow. Its cliffs rose like guardians, its hidden entrances like veins cut into stone. Inside, corridors stretched long and painted, their walls alive with gods and stars, their ceilings adorned with maps of the heavens. The sarcophagi placed within were not cages, but vessels, their lids heavy yet protective, their surfaces carved with prayers, with names, with spells meant to guide, to guard, to lift. Even the air within such tombs was prepared, perfumed with incense, thick with resins, layered with linen that wrapped the body as carefully as one might swaddle an infant, sending it not into absence but into rebirth. Temples too served as tombs, in part, their sanctuaries aligned with solstices, their axes opening toward rising suns. Each stone block was lifted as if it were a prayer itself, each hieroglyph carved as though it carried not only meaning but power. Priests moved through these places, whispering invocations, offering food, pouring water, burning incense, all with the knowledge that their gestures did not end in smoke or ash, but crossed the threshold, reached the gods, reached the dead, reached eternity. The Egyptians believed that within these tombs, within these temples, within these pyramids, the Ka and the Ba, the vital forces of the self, could unite again, could become the Ok, the luminous spirit that lived forever. The tomb was not only a house for the body, but a machine for the soul, a chamber of transformation, a cocoon where mortality dissolved and eternity began. Every jar, every amulet, every spell painted upon the walls was part of this passage, part of the bridge from seen to unseen, from finite to infinite. And so the desert itself became sacred, for within its silence these gateways stood. To walk among them was to walk upon thresholds, each dune whispering with the presence of those who had passed, each wind carrying echoes of prayers spoken thousands of years before. The sand did not bury, it preserved. The tombs did not close, they opened. The pyramids did not decay, they endured, standing still as mountains, yet alive as rivers, their stillness humming, their silence speaking. For the Egyptians, the tomb was not feared. It was prepared with reverence, entered with calm, sealed with certainty. Families did not weep at the threshold, but offered gifts, laid flowers, poured milk and honey, whispered names so they would not fade. In this way, the dead were never absent, but near in memory, near in stone, near in spirit. The tomb was the place where nearness was preserved, where presence lingered, where eternity touched the living world. And as you rest within this vision, let the tombs be not chambers of sorrow, but doorways of calm. Feel their stones around you as the steady weight of safety. See their hieroglyphs glow softly as the shimmer behind your eyes. Smell the incense that drifts through them as the fragrance of dreams filling your breath. Hear the silence of their chambers, not as emptiness, but as fullness, as eternity whispering softly around you. For in Egypt, to step into a tomb was to step into eternity, and to step into eternity was to step into rest. Block 8. The sacred texts and spells. Beyond the silence of tombs carved in stone, beyond the vast pyramids aligned with stars, there were words written carefully, painted with pigments of red, blue, and black, inscribed upon papyrus and upon the walls of hidden chambers. To the Egyptians, words were not fragile symbols, not sounds that faded with air, but living beings, embodiments of power, carriers of meaning that did not dissolve with time. To place words within a tomb was not to decorate it, but to open it, not to ornament the walls, but to breathe eternity into them. These words became spells, and the spells became bridges, and the bridges became the safe passage for the soul upon its long and unseen journey. The most famous of these words we call the Book of the Dead, though, to the Egyptians, it was not a single book, but a collection, a weaving of utterances, prayers, invocations, and hymns. Its title, The Book of Coming Forth by Day, reveals its true essence. It was not a manual for death, but a guide for rising into light. The dead, armed with its spells, did not wander lost, but moved with assurance, speaking passwords before guardians, reciting prayers at gates, calling upon gods by name, remembering truths that opened the way. Each line was a lamp set within shadow, each word a staff upon the road, each spell a hand that reached across silence to steady the soul. Imagine a papyrus unrolled in the flicker of torchlight, its surface filled with figures drawn in delicate strokes, Anubis weighing the heart, Ra sailing his solar bark, Osiris upon his throne. Beneath them, columns of hieroglyphs march steady, their shapes alive. Birds poised to fly, eyes that watch unblinking, reeds that rustle in invisible breezes. To read them was not to glance, but to participate, to bring them alive upon the lips, to release their power with breath. Priests recited them with voices low and steady, as though chanting lullabies for the soul, as though calling across the Duat, so that the departed would never feel alone. The spells spoke of dangers, but also of peace. They described the guardians that stood at gates, but gave the words to greet them. They described the rivers of fire, but gave the incantations to cross them unharmed. They described serpents that rose from shadows, but gave the names that rendered them harmless. At every turn, where fear might rise, a spell was present, a word, a breath, a calm. The Egyptians did not believe the soul must wander in terror. They believed it must walk with guidance, with assurance, with peace. And so the Book of the Dead was less a book of dread than a book of comfort, less a map of obstacles than a song of passage. Other texts, too, whispered within tombs, the pyramid texts, inscribed upon walls in the Old Kingdom. Words carved directly into stone, so that even if papyrus crumbled, the spells would endure as long as the pyramid itself. They spoke to the king, guiding him into the sky, calling him a star, declaring that he would rise with Ra, that he would sail among the imperishable constellations. Later came the coffin texts, painted upon wooden coffins, expanding the privilege of spells beyond kings to nobles, to those who could prepare themselves with written word. In each age, the words remained constant. They guided, they protected, they soothed. To the Egyptians, to write a name was to preserve it, to speak a word was to make it real, to inscribe a spell was to ensure eternity. Words were as sacred as temples, as enduring as stone, as essential as breath. And so tombs were filled not only with treasures, but with texts, not only with gold, but with hieroglyphs, not only with vessels, but with papyri rolled and tucked beside the body, ready to be read when the journey began. And within these words, the soul found not only safety, but calm. Imagine lying in the cool chamber of a tomb, the walls around you glowing with painted figures, the hieroglyphs alive with light. As you close your eyes, the words rise softly, like voices chanting in distant halls, like the hum of water flowing unseen. They carry you forward, step by step, across rivers, through gates, into fields, into light. They do not rush, they do not command. They flow steady, patient, soothing, as lullabies of eternity. As you rest within this vision, let the sacred texts be not foreign but familiar. Hear their whispers as the quiet within your thoughts. See their hieroglyphs glowing as the shimmer behind your eyes. Feel their presence as words written upon your own breath, words that carry you, guard you, soothe you. The Egyptians knew that death was not silence if words were spoken, that eternity was not frightening if words were remembered. Let these sacred texts, these eternal lullabies, guide you now into rest, as they guided countless souls before you, gently, endlessly, into peace. beyond the hall of two truths, where the heart has been weighed and balance has been found. The soul does not rest immediately in eternal fields, but must pass through the Duat, the vast and mysterious realm of the underworld, the hidden corridors beneath existence, the space where night stretches long and silence is deeper than rivers. To speak of the Duat is not to speak of punishment, but of passage, of a landscape both dream and shadow, where gods walk unseen and gates rise endless, where each step is both trial and reassurance, both mystery and promise. Imagine the Duat not as darkness, but as twilight, a place where light glimmers faintly, yet never fades entirely. Rivers of black water flow slowly, their surfaces reflecting the shimmer of stars, though no sky stretches above. Caverns open wide, their ceilings vast and painted with constellations that glow faintly as though starlight itself had descended. Pathways twist like winding currents, some lined with fire that burns without heat, some with walls carved in endless hieroglyphs, their symbols glowing softly as if alive. The Duat is not chaos but order, though an order that can only be walked slowly, step by step, as if through a dream that must be endured to be understood. Here, the soul encounters gates 12, in number, each guarded by deities whose names whisper like spells. Each gate is not barrier but threshold, each guardian not enemy but examiner. Their forms shift, some radiant, some fearsome, some serene, yet all demand the same. Words of passage, truth spoken, courage remembered. The Book of the Dead gave to the living these words, inscribed upon papyri buried with the body, so that when the soul stood trembling before a gate, it could speak, it could remember, it could move forward. For, in the Duat, words were not ornament but key, not metaphor but path itself. At times, the soul is ferried across waters, standing upon boats carved with eyes upon their prows, guided by figures who row in silence, their movements steady, their faces unreadable. The waters themselves are smooth, reflecting faint constellations, the boat gliding as though pushed not by oars but by inevitability. At times the soul walks upon narrow bridges, fire flickering below, winds sighing above, the silence broken only by the sound of its own steps. At times it moves through fields of reeds, taller than a man, whispering softly as the wind passes, their sound soothing as lullaby. The Duat is many places at once, a shifting of scenes, a dissolving of boundaries, a dream that moves as dreams do, without map, without measure, yet always onward. And in this journey, gods appear, not to terrify, but to guide. Anubis walks still, his jackal eyes glowing in shadow, his presence steady, protective. Thoth appears, ibiseded, inscribing the steps, recording the words, ensuring the order remains unbroken. Horus glimmers faintly, falcon wings stretching across visions of dawn that flicker even here in shadow. Isis, radiant, speaks softly, her words carrying warmth, her hand lifting the soul when weariness sets in. The Duat is not emptiness. It is filled with presences, with guardians, with the steady rhythm of eternity watching, carrying, sustaining. Each gate passed, each guardian greeted, each word spoken brings the soul closer to the horizon of dawn. For the Duat is not destination but passage, not silence without end but silence leading to song. At its deepest, at its most shadowed, the bark of Ra itself passes, carrying the sun through night, its sails glowing with fire. Its crew of gods fending off the serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, who seeks to devour the light. The struggle is fierce, yet it repeats always the same, and always, without fail, the sun emerges again, the serpent defeated, the dawn assured, and so too with the soul. The journey through shadow is not without challenge, but it is written, inevitable, certain, that light waits beyond. As you rest within this vision, let the Duat be not frightening, but soothing. Hear the hush of its rivers as the rhythm of your own breath. See the glow of its constellations as the shimmer behind your eyes. Feel the slow passage through gates as the easing of your own thoughts, one by one, step by step. Let the guardians be not fearsome but gentle, their presence protective, their silence reassuring. The Duat is not chaos but calm, not punishment but passage, not darkness but dream, and as the soul walks through it, so too may you walk into deeper rest, carried gently, steadily, into the dawn of silence. Block 9. The Eternal Sun and Ra's Journey. Above all the tombs and temples, above the quiet corridors of the Duat, and the still waters of the field of reeds, there is a rhythm that never ceases, a cycle that the Egyptians trusted more than any stone, more than any spell, more than any offering. It is the journey of Ra, the great sun, who rises each morning upon the eastern horizon, who sails across the sky in his golden bark, who descends each evening into the west, and who does not vanish but travels through the hidden places of night, only to rise again at dawn. This cycle, endless and steady, was the very heartbeat of eternity, the assurance that death is not disappearance but passage, that night is not void but bridge, that silence is not end but transformation. Imagine Ra's bark, gleaming with gold, its sails shimmering with light, its prow carved with eyes that see beyond horizons. Upon it stand gods who accompany him, Sial, the god of perception, Hu, the god of command, and others who help him steer through darkness. Each evening the bark slips beyond the western mountains, into the unseen corridors of the Duat, into the places where stars gleam upon ceilings of shadow, into the waters where silence flows like ink. Yet even in this hidden journey, the bark glows, carrying the light that will return, carrying the dawn folded within the night. In these hours of darkness, Ra faces the serpent Apophis, embodiment of chaos, the endless coil that seeks to devour light. Yet the Egyptians knew the story always ended the same. The gods who sail with Ra fend off the serpent, spearing its coils, scattering its shadows, ensuring that the bark moves forward, steady, unbroken. Each night this battle unfolds, each night Apophis rises, each night he is defeated, and each dawn the horizon glows once more. For the Egyptians, this was not merely myth but promise, a rhythm etched into the very fabric of time, a lullaby sung by the cosmos itself, that darkness is always followed by light, that silence is always followed by song, that endings are always followed by beginnings. Picture dawn upon the Nile, the sky pale with first light, the waters glowing softly, the birds stirring in reeds, the temples catching gold upon their stones. This moment was more than sunrise. It was proof that Ra had triumphed, that the journey through the Duat had ended once more in renewal, that the world continued, and in this daily cycle the Egyptians saw their own journey reflected. Life as day, death as night, rebirth as dawn. To trust the sun was to trust eternity. To watch its rising was to feel the calm certainty that nothing truly ends, that all flows, that all returns. Within tombs, ceilings were painted with stars, walls adorned with images of Ra's bark, texts inscribed with hymns to the sun. The dead were not buried in darkness, but surrounded by light, wrapped not only in linen, but in words that promised the cycle would carry them too, that they would rise as Ra rose, that they would sail as Ra sailed, that they would endure as the sun endured. The Litany of Ra, a sacred text, praised him in 75 forms, each a reminder that his essence was infinite, his presence unbreakable, his light eternal. To whisper these hymns was to align the soul with the sun, to join the rhythm of dawn and dusk, to surrender into the calm certainty of return. The Egyptians did not see the sun as distant, as unreachable. They felt its warmth upon their skin, they watched its light upon their fields, they saw its reflection in the Nile. To them, Ra was both cosmic and intimate, both eternal and near, both God and daily companion. His journey was theirs, his rising their rising, his setting their setting, his renewal their renewal. To live was to walk within his day, to die was to sail within his night, to rest in eternity was to rise again with his dawn. And so, in the Egyptian vision, no soul ever wandered without guidance, for Ra's bark passed always, carrying with it the promise of return. Even the deepest night could not hold him, even the strongest serpent could not devour him, even the widest darkness could not silence him. He was light folded into time, fire folded into silence, eternity folded into each moment of dawn. To look upon the sun was to glimpse forever. To close the eyes at dusk was to trust that forever waited within the night. As you rest within this vision, let Ra's journey be not myth but lullaby. Feel the warmth of the sun upon your skin as the weight of blankets. See its golden glow upon water as the shimmer behind your eyes. Hear the hush of his bark slipping through the night as the rhythm of your breath. Let the cycle of day and night, of setting and rising, of silence and renewal, carry you as it carried the Egyptians, calmly, endlessly, gently into trust, into stillness, into peace. Block 10 Rituals of the Living. Even as the sun traced its eternal journey across the heavens and through the Duat. Even as Osiris reigned in calm upon his throne and Ra's bark carried the promise of renewal, the living upon earth played their part in weaving eternity. For the Egyptians believed that the gates of forever did not open by chance alone. They were opened by preparation, by reverence, by ritual. And so, in villages along the Nile, in temples that gleamed in sunlight, in homes fragrant with incense, the living performed acts of devotion that carried the souls of the departed gently into rest. Death was not severance, but continuity, not silence, but song, and the voices of the living echoed across the threshold, guiding those who had stepped into shadow. Picture a house at the edge of the Nile, its courtyard shaded by palms, its hearth warm with bread newly baked. A family gathers in quiet, offering bowls of milk, jars of beer, plates of figs, bread woven into careful shapes, all placed upon a table as though a guest were expected. Yet the guest is not seen, for it is the Hathor, vital essence, of a departed loved one that will partake. The offerings are not wasted. They are transformed, their essence carried beyond, their sustenance feeding the soul as it journeys. The family does not speak in sorrow, but in calm, whispering the name of the departed, knowing that to speak a name is to keep it alive, that to forget it is the only true death. In temples, priests move with measured steps, their heads shaven, their robes white, their hands carrying censers from which smoke drifts upward in spirals. They chant hymns written upon papyrus, their voices low, steady, endless. The chants are not hurried. They flow like water, repeating like the cycle of the sun, each line rising like dawn, each refrain sinking like dusk. These hymns do not plead, for the Egyptians did not beg their gods, they aligned with them. The rituals were not cries of fear, but songs of harmony, affirmations that the world of the living and the world of the dead were one fabric, woven together by offering and word. The opening of the mouth was one of the most sacred of these rites. Before the body was placed in its tomb, Priests touched its lips with ritual tools, zadzes, chisels, sacred instruments, storing to it the power of speech, the ability to eat, the ability to breathe. It was not superstition, but assurance, a final gesture that allowed the dead to live again in the afterlife, to speak before the gods, to partake of offerings, to whisper their names so they would not be lost. Families watched with reverence, knowing that this ritual was a bridge, a sealing of the passage, a guarantee that their loved one would not wander in silence but speak forever among the eternal. Every act, however small, was infused with this belief. A flower laid upon a grave was not decoration but life itself, its fragrance carried into eternity. A libation poured upon the earth was not lost to dust but drank by the soul beyond. A hymn sung in a dimly lit chamber was not absorbed by walls, but carried across the veil. The Egyptians believed that the living and the dead conversed through ritual, that the veil was thin, that the actions of the living echoed in eternity, that love, expressed in offerings and in names spoken, bound the soul forever into memory and presence. And so tombs were stocked, not only with treasures of gold and amulets of stone, but with the simplest of gifts, bread, beer, jars of water, pieces of meat, fruits, clothing, sandals. These were not luxuries, but necessities, provisions for the journey, sustenance for eternity. Every object carried meaning, every gesture carried weight. The jars sealed within tombs did not decay, but waited, their essence ready to nourish, their presence ensuring that the dead would lack nothing in eternity. The Egyptians lived with death, not as shadow, but as companion. They walked past tombs in their daily life, offered prayers when passing temples, poured libations upon ancestral shrines. Death was never exile, never distance, but nearness. The living and the dead shared the Nile, shared the sun, shared the rhythm of ritual. Each chant, each offering, each gesture carried across that shared river, guiding, sustaining, soothing. And as you rest within this vision, let the rituals of the living be your own lullaby. Hear the chants of priests as the rhythm of your own breath. See the smoke of incense rising as the shimmer behind your eyes. Smell the fragrance of lotus and bread as the calm drifting of dreams across your thoughts. Feel the offerings placed gently as the weight of comfort upon you. The Egyptians knew that love spoken aloud, gestures repeated with patience, names whispered in reverence, never faded, but carried souls gently into rest. And so too may you be carried now, softly, endlessly, into the embrace of sleep. Block 11. The eternal car and bar. Beyond the rituals performed by the living, beyond the hymns chanted in temples fragrant with incense, beyond the offerings of bread and beer left upon tables in the shadow of tombs, lay a deeper mystery that shaped the Egyptian vision of eternity. It was the mystery of the soul itself, not as a single breath, not as a single flame, but as a harmony of parts forces, distinct yet intertwined elements that together made a person whole in life, and, when carefully guided, in death as well. To the Egyptians, the soul was not simple but layered, not fleeting but enduring, not fragile but intricate. And within this intricate vision lay the ka and the ba, two essences that, when joined, became the luminous Ok, the eternal self, radiant and everlasting. The ka was the vital spark, the energy that animated the body, the breath of life given at birth, the twin that accompanied a person throughout their days. It was the double, the unseen presence, the echo of vitality. When the body lived, the ka fed with it, breathed with it, moved with it. When the body died, the ka did not vanish, but remained, lingering near the tomb, waiting, needing sustenance, receiving offerings left by the living. This is why food and drink were placed within graves, why prayers were whispered, why rituals continued, to nourish the car, to assure it did not weaken, to allow it to remain strong enough to journey into eternity. The car was not ghost but essence, not shadow but force, a presence that ensured the continuity of being. The bar was something different, more fluid, more free, more mysterious. It was the personality, the individuality, the unique presence of a person, often imagined as a bird with a human head, capable of flying beyond the body, moving between worlds, wandering in dreams, crossing thresholds. At death, the bar left the body, spreading wings, gliding across tombs and temples, visiting the places loved in life, hovering near family, drifting across the Nile, resting in sacred spaces. Yet, though it could wander, it was always tethered to the body, to the tomb, to the car. Without their reunion, eternity could not be complete. And so the Egyptians believed the great goal of burial and of ritual was to unite the car and the bar once more, to allow the essence and the individuality to merge, to bind vitality and personality together, creating the Octha transfigured spirit, the shining one, luminous, eternal. The Ok was not shadow, not echo, not fragment, but wholeness, completion, a being of light capable of moving freely through eternity, welcomed into the field of reeds, blessed in the presence of Osiris, radiant beneath the endless cycle of Ra's rising and setting. The Ok was the goal of all prayers, the promise of all spells, the destination of every ritual, a soul whole, unbroken, enduring. Imagine the bar fluttering softly, bird-like, through the chambers of a tomb, its wings brushing hieroglyphs painted with care, its eyes gleaming in torchlight. Imagine the car waiting patiently, nourished by offerings, glowing faintly with vitality, holding the essence of breath. And then, at the moment of reunion, the two draw near, the wings of the bar folding gently, the presence of the car rising warmly. The union luminous, shimmering, steady. The Ok emerges not in thunder but in calm, not in blaze but in glow, as though a star had kindled quietly in the night, as though a lantern had been lit within the soul itself. Texts inscribed within tombs spoke of this transformation. They described the Ok as radiant, as powerful, as capable of joining the stars in their imperishable constellations. They promised that the Ok could walk among the gods, could speak with Osiris, could sail with Ra, could wander freely yet never be lost. The Ok was not bound by body nor by tomb. It was free, luminous, eternal, the perfected self, the dream of the Egyptians fulfilled. To become ACH was to become complete, to be at rest and at peace, yet alive in eternity, alive in harmony, alive forever. And so, in every ritual, in every offering, in every hieroglyph carved and every papyrus inscribed, this truth lingered, that death was not the end of self, but the transfiguration of self. The car endured, the bar wandered, the Ok emerged. Eternity was not dissolution but reunion, not silence but harmony, not vanishing but glowing, softly, endlessly, like starlight upon the Nile. As you rest within this vision, let the car and bar within you be not scattered but calm. Feel the car as the steady breath within your chest, the rhythm of life that sustains. Feel the bar as the gentle drifting of thoughts, the wings of dreams that wander as you sleep, and let them unite quietly, gently, within you, forming the luminous Ok, the shining self, radiant, whole, eternal. In this harmony, in this union, there is no fear, no weight, no burden, only stillness, only calm, only rest. Block 12. Eternity carved in stone. The Egyptians trusted many things, the steady flow of the Nile, the golden cycle of the sun, the whispers of ritual, the breath of the cup, the wings of the bar. Yet among all their trusts, perhaps none was so enduring, so visible even now, as their faith in stone. For stone does not fade like papyrus, does not wither like flowers, does not crumble like offerings of bread and beer. Stone endures. And so they carved eternity into it, lifting blocks into pyramids, hollowing cliffs into tombs, raising temples whose columns stood like forests petrified, inscribing walls with lines upon lines of hieroglyphs that sang even in silence. For the Egyptians, stone was not mute. It was music that would not cease, prayer that would not dissolve, memory that would not die. Picture a pyramid rising against the desert horizon. Its angles are sharp, its sides vast, its presence unyielding. To build it was not only labor but devotion, an act of aligning earth with sky, of shaping sand and stone into a ladder for the soul. Each block, dragged across desert, lifted into place, set with precision, was more than architecture, it was an offering. Within, chambers stretched deep, narrow passages leading to burial rooms painted with stars, their ceilings a mirror of the heavens. The pyramid was not only house for a king, but also map of the cosmos, stone geometry humming with harmony, a doorway cut into eternity. Temples, too, rose as mountains carved by hands. Karnak, Luxor, Abu, symbol names, we whisper still. Yet in their time they stood as living sanctuaries, spaces where gods and men met. Their columns towered, carved with lotus and papyrus, their walls painted with scenes of pharaohs offering incense to deities, their pylons engraved with victories and rituals. Light fell upon them not by chance, but by design, shafts of dawn entering sanctuaries at solstices, shadows tracing order across stone as the year unfolded. To walk their halls was to walk into eternity embodied, each step echoing not only in air but in time. And upon these stones, words were carved, hieroglyphs precise, figures of birds and eyes, reeds and serpents, gods and men. Each symbol was more than letter. It was presence, power, spell. Carving them into stone meant they could not be erased, meant they lived as long as the stone endured, meant that eternity was etched into walls where no wind could carry it away. To touch such carvings was to touch prayer, to trace memory, to feel the very breath of those who had believed. Tombs, whether within pyramids or hidden in valleys, were also canvases of stone. Their corridors glowed with painted gods, their chambers sang with stars painted upon ceilings, their sarcophagi gleamed with polished inscriptions. Scenes of daily life unfolded upon walls, farmers sowing seed, women grinding grain, men fishing in the Nile, families gathered at feasts. Yet these were not mere decorations. They were invocations, wishes inscribed so that eternity would mirror life, so that the soul would find again what it had loved, so that fields and rivers and hearths would remain forever. Stone, in this way, became not tomb but bridge, not silence but song, not absence but presence. Even stele placed in villages and shrines carried this vision. Families carved names of their dead, prayers for offerings, images of gods holding ankh and scepter. These stones stood not only in great temples, but in humble homes, in corners of daily life, ensuring that eternity was never distant, that it stood close, visible, touchable. To carve a name into stone was to promise it would not fade. To inscribe a prayer upon stone was to bind it into forever. And so Egypt itself became a land of carved eternity. Wherever one walked, one saw stone that spoke, obelisks piercing the sky, statues seated in silence, yet alive with presence, temples whose walls carried thousands of lines of text, pyramids whose angles captured the light of sun and stars. The desert, vast and shifting, could not bury them. The centuries, long and countless, could not erase them. Stone outlasted even empires, its silence carrying whispers still, its endurance carrying the weight of memory still, its presence carrying eternity still. As you rest within this vision, let the stones of Egypt be not heavy but soothing. Feel their solidity as the weight of blankets upon you. See their carvings glow softly as the shimmer behind your eyes. Hear their silence as the calm within your breath. For the Egyptians, stone was lullaby steady, enduring, patient. It whispered across ages, across deserts, across silence, carrying souls into eternity, carrying eternity into souls. Let that whisper carry you now, softly, endlessly, into rest. Block 13. The Whisper of Forever. At the end of this long passage through the mysteries of Egypt, through the Nile that flowed steady as breath, through the tombs that opened not into darkness but into light, through the trials of the Duat and the throne of Osiris, through the union of Ka and Ba and the radiance of the oak, through the temples of stone that still stand as songs of eternity, there remains only silence. Yet it is not silence of absence, not silence of emptiness, but silence that hums, silence that glows, silence that whispers softly across the centuries. It is the whisper of forever, the voice of eternity that the Egyptians trusted above all, the voice that says there is no true ending, only continuation, only return, only calm. Imagine standing upon the desert at dusk, the pyramids rising sharp against the horizon, their edges glowing gold as the sun sets. The wind moves slowly across the sand, carrying the faint fragrance of lotus from waters far away. The sky deepens into indigo, stars unfolding one by one, constellations gleaming as though painted by the hands of gods. In that moment, you feel what the Egyptians felt, that beneath the visible world lies a rhythm unbroken, that each setting sun carries within it a promise of dawn, that each breath drawn in silence is part of a greater eternity. The Egyptians carved eternity into stone, sang it in hymns, inscribed it on papyrus, whispered it in prayers. They trusted that the soul, when freed from body, did not dissolve but transformed, did not vanish but journeyed, did not end but entered into balance. Their gods were not tyrants but guardians, their rituals not cries of fear but songs of harmony, their tombs not prisons but gateways, their texts not instructions but lullabies. Every act, every offering, every name spoken was a thread woven into the fabric of forever, ensuring that nothing loved was ever truly lost, that nothing true was ever truly forgotten. And so eternity lingers still. It lingers in the stones that rise from sand, in the paintings that glow upon hidden walls, in the words that still whisper from fragments of papyrus. It lingers in the stories carried across millennia, in the names still spoken, in the gods still remembered. It lingers not only in Egypt, but in every heart that listens, in every soul that feels the hush of forever upon its breath. For eternity, once whispered, is never silenced. And as you rest within this vision, let eternity be not distant but near. Hear it in the hush of your own breath, steady and calm. See it in the glow behind your eyes, soft and endless. Feel it in the weight of stillness around you, patient and protective. The Egyptians knew that forever was not heavy but light, not frightening but soothing, not foreign but intimate. It is here, now, as it was then, as it always will be, a whisper carrying you into rest. And if this journey through God's tombs and eternity has eased your thoughts, if it has carried you gently across the Nile of silence and into fields of calm, you may, in your own time, choose to let your presence be felt here as well. You may like this video softly. Leave a comment sharing which vision of the Egyptian afterlife lingers most vividly in your imagination. Share it with another dreamer who longs for calm horizons. Or subscribe so that each new tale may find you when night is long and sleep is near. There is no urgency, only invitation, as gentle as the whisper of forever itself.